Hello friends. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Before we dive in, I want you to take a moment for yourself. Maybe you've had a long day, or maybe you're just looking for a little inspiration. Either way, I invite you to grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and settle in, because tonight I want to take you on a journey. You know, life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes it's with moments of joy, a new grandchild, a long-lost friend reaching out, or a beautiful sunset at the end of a hard day. But other times, life throws us challenges we never saw coming. Maybe it's a health scare, a family crisis, losing a job, or just feeling lost as the world changes around us. I've faced my share of those moments, and I know many of you have too. Tonight, I want to share with you one of the most challenging periods of my own life. It's a story about fear, uncertainty, and the strength we find when we have no other choice. But it's also a story about hope, resilience, and the incredible power of support from family and friends. As I share my journey, I'll also tell you about others people I know, and maybe even some of you who have faced their own mountains and found a way to keep climbing. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're never truly alone in our struggles. So whether you're here to listen, to find comfort, or to remember your own strength, I hope this story brings you a little light tonight. Let's talk about overcoming challenges together. Let me take you back to the spring of 2012. I was 54 years old. It's funny how certain years stick in your memory, isn't it? For me, 2012 was one of those years. At the time, I was working full-time at a job I'd held for over a decade. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and I took pride in what I did. My days had a comfortable rhythm. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. Sharp, never needed an alarm clock, just the habit of years gone by. My wife would already be up, the smell of fresh coffee drifting through the house. We'd sit together at the kitchen table, just the two of us, talking quietly about the day ahead while the world outside was still waking up. Sometimes we'd talk about the kids, sometimes about the news, and sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. After breakfast, I'd head off to work. The drive was familiar, same streets, same faces at the stoplights. I'd listen to the radio, maybe catch a bit of the morning news or an old favorite song. At work, I had my routines, my coworkers, my little corner of the world. There was a sense of purpose in it, even in the small things. By 6 p.m., I'd be back home. My wife and I would make dinner together, nothing fancy, just good, simple food. Our kids, though grown, would often stop by for a meal or a quick chat. The house was always full of laughter, stories, and the occasional friendly debate over the best way to cook pasta. After dinner, we'd settle in for a little TV. Sometimes it was a classic movie, sometimes a game show, sometimes just the evening news. Then, before bed, I'd take a few minutes to step outside, breathe in the night air, and feel grateful for another ordinary, peaceful day. I felt healthy. I was active, walking the dog, doing yard work, even playing a little tennis on weekends. I didn't take any of it for granted. I knew I was lucky to have a loving family, good friends, and a life that, while not perfect, was full of small joys. But you know, life has a way of changing the script when you least expect it. Sometimes, just when you think you've got everything figured out, a curveball comes your way, a challenge that tests everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. And that's exactly what happened to me. The first signs. It started with small things, so small, in fact, that I almost didn't notice them at first. I remember waking up one morning, feeling a little more tired than usual. I thought, well, maybe I stayed up too late watching that movie last night. Or, maybe I'm just not as young as I used to be. You know how it is when you hit your 50s. You start to expect a few more aches and pains, a little less energy. But the tiredness didn't go away. In fact, it seemed to settle in, like an unwelcome guest who just wouldn't leave. I found myself yawning through meetings at work, struggling to keep my eyes open in the afternoons. Even my morning walks with the dog felt a little harder. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself it was just stress, or maybe I needed to eat better, get more sleep, take some vitamins. Then one afternoon, I felt a strange tightness in my chest. It wasn't sharp, just a dull, uncomfortable pressure. I paused, took a few deep breaths, and waited for it to pass. It did eventually, and I went on with my day. But over the next week, the feeling came back, sometimes when I was climbing the stairs, sometimes just sitting at my desk. I didn't say anything to my wife or my kids. I didn't want to worry them. I told myself, it's probably nothing. Maybe I pulled a muscle, maybe it's just indigestion. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at work, in the middle of a meeting, when suddenly the pain in my chest became so intense I had to stop talking. I remember gripping the edge of the table, trying to catch my breath, my heart pounding in my ears. My coworker, Linda, was sitting across from me. She noticed right away that something was wrong. She asked if I was okay, and I tried to wave her off, but she wouldn't have it. She insisted I sit down, brought me a glass of water and said, "You need to see a doctor, now." I could see the concern in her eyes, and for the first time, I realized I couldn't ignore this any longer. I called my wife, told her what happened, and promised I'd make an appointment. That afternoon, I left work early and went straight to the doctor's office. That's when everything changed. The diagnosis. The doctor ran some tests, blood work, an EKG, a stress test on a treadmill. I remember sitting in that waiting room, the walls painted a pale, calming blue, but nothing could calm the storm inside me. My heart was pounding, not just from the physical symptoms, but from the fear of the unknown. I kept telling myself, it's probably nothing. Maybe I'm just out of shape. Maybe it's stress. I tried to focus on the magazines on the table, but the words just blurred together. Time seemed to slow down. Every time the nurse walked by, I wondered if she was coming for me. I watched other patients come and go, some looking relieved, others worried. I tried to read their faces, searching for some clue about what my own future might hold. Finally, the nurse called my name. I followed her down a long hallway to the doctor's office. The doctor was kind, but I could see the seriousness in his eyes. He didn't waste time with small talk. He got right to the point. He said, "Your tests show that you have a serious blockage in your heart. You're at risk for a major heart attack. We need to act quickly." For a moment, I just sat there, not really understanding what he was saying. It felt like the world had stopped. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Me? A heart condition? I'd always thought of myself as strong, healthy, the one who took care of everyone else. Suddenly, I felt fragile, like I was made of glass. The doctor explained that I would need surgery, and soon. He talked about the risks, the procedure, the recovery. I nodded along, but my mind was racing. Surgery? I'd never even spent a night in the hospital before. I thought about my wife, my kids, my grandkids. I thought about all the things I still wanted to do, all the moments I might miss. Shock, fear, disbelief, they all hit me at once. I tried to hold it together, but I could feel my hands shaking. I asked the doctor, "Are you sure? Is there any other way?" He shook his head gently and said, "This is the best option. If we wait, it could be much worse." I left the office with a stack of papers, a list of instructions, and a heavy weight in my chest, not just from the blockage, but from the fear of what was to come. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring at the steering wheel, trying to process everything. I thought about calling my wife, but I didn't know what to say. How do you tell the person you love that your life has just changed in an instant? That drive home was the longest of my life. Every mile, I replayed the doctor's words in my head. I felt like I was in a fog, moving through the world but not really seeing it. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I knew I had to face my family and share the news that would change all of our lives. Family reactions. Telling my family was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I remember sitting in the car for a long time after I got home, just staring at the front door. I could see the lights on in the kitchen, my wife moving around, probably getting dinner ready. I knew I couldn't put it off, but I also knew that once I said the words out loud, everything would change. When I finally walked in, my wife looked up and smiled, but she could tell right away that something was wrong. I tried to smile back, but I must not have done a very good job. She came over, put her hand on my arm, and asked, "What is it? What did the doctor say?" I took a deep breath and told her as gently as I could. I said, "They found a blockage in my heart. The doctor says I need surgery, and soon." For a moment, she just stood there, her hand still on my arm. I could see the worry in her eyes, even though she tried to be strong for me. She hugged me tightly, and I could feel her holding back tears. She whispered, "We'll get through this. We'll do it together." We sat down at the kitchen table, and I explained everything the doctor had told me: the risks, the surgery, the recovery. She listened carefully, asking questions, trying to understand. I could see her mind racing, already thinking about what needed to be done, who to call, how to support me. That's just who she is, always taking care of everyone else, even when she's scared. Later that evening, we called our kids. Our oldest, Mark, came over right away. He tried to put on a brave face, but I could see the fear in his eyes. My youngest, Sarah, was always the sensitive one. When she heard the news, she started to cry. She hugged me and said, "Dad, you're going to be okay, right?" I wanted to promise her that everything would be fine, but I couldn't. All I could do was hold her and tell her I loved her. We all sat together that night, the four of us, talking about what might happen. We talked about the surgery, about what I would need during recovery, about how we would get through it as a family. There were a lot of tears, but there was also a lot of love. My wife squeezed my hand and said, "We're in this together, no matter what." It was the first time I truly realized how much we all depend on each other. In that moment, I saw how strong my family was, not just for me, but for each other. I saw the love that held us together, even in the face of fear and uncertainty. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about all the times I'd taken my family for granted. The little moments, dinners together, laughter in the living room, even the arguments over silly things. I realized how precious those moments were, and how much I wanted to hold on to them. Facing a challenge like this, you learn very quickly what really matters. And for me, it was clear. My family was my anchor, my reason to fight, and my greatest source of strength. The waiting game. On camera, voice steady but with a hint of vulnerability, hands perhaps folded or fidgeting. The weeks before the surgery were some of the longest and hardest of my life. It's strange once you know something big is coming. Time seems to slow down and speed up all at once. Every day felt like it lasted forever, but at the same time, the dates circled on the calendar kept creeping closer. I tried to keep busy. I went to work every day, even though my mind was somewhere else. I threw myself into chores around the house, fixing that leaky faucet, organizing the garage, mowing the lawn even when it didn't really need it. Anything to keep my hands moving and my mind distracted. My wife noticed, of course. She'd catch me scrubbing the kitchen counters for the third time in a day and just give me a gentle smile. She knew I was trying to outrun my own thoughts. But no matter how much I tried to fill my days, the nights were a different story. When the house was quiet and everyone else was asleep, that's when the worries crept in. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. What if I didn't make it through the surgery? What if something went wrong? What if my family had to go on without me? Those thoughts were the hardest to shake. I thought about my wife, about how much she depended on me, and how much I depended on her. I thought about my kids, all the things I still wanted to teach them, the moments I still wanted to share. I thought about the future, and how uncertain it suddenly felt. There were nights when the fear felt overwhelming. On those nights, I started writing letters to my kids, just in case. I wanted them to know how proud I was of them, how much I loved them, and all the things I might not get the chance to say. I tucked those letters away in a drawer, hoping I'd never have to use them, but needing to know they were there. But even in the middle of all that anxiety, I found comfort in small things. My wife's hand in mine as we sat together on the couch, not needing to say anything at all. My dog, sensing my unease, curling up at my feet and letting out a contented sigh. The sound of rain on the roof at night, steady and soothing, reminding me that life goes on, no matter what. I started to notice those little moments more, the warmth of a cup of tea in my hands, the laughter of my kids in the next room, the way the sunlight filtered through the kitchen window in the morning. Those small comforts became my lifeline. Tiny reminders that even in the midst of fear and uncertainty, there was still beauty and love all around me. Waiting for surgery was a test of patience, of faith, and of strength. But it was also a time that taught me to appreciate the present, to hold on to hope, and to lean on the people who loved me most. Support systems. During those weeks of waiting, I learned something I'll never forget, the true value of friendship and community. You know, we go through life thinking we're pretty self-sufficient. We take care of our families, we handle our responsibilities, and we try not to ask for too much. But when life throws you a curveball, you realize just how much you need the people around you and how much they're willing to give. It started with the neighbors. Word got around pretty quickly that I was facing surgery, and before I knew it, there was a steady stream of casseroles, soups, and homemade bread showing up at our door. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, even baked her famous apple pie. She said it was for strength and good luck. I can't tell you how much those simple gestures meant to us. It wasn't just about the food. It was about knowing that people cared, that we weren't alone. Friends called and visited, sometimes just to sit with me for a while, sometimes to share a laugh or a story. My old friend Tom dropped by with a deck of cards and challenged me to a game of gin rummy, just like we used to do in our younger days. For an hour or two, I could forget about hospitals and doctors and just be myself again. My church group was another source of comfort. They prayed for me every week, and a few of them came by to offer words of encouragement. One Sunday, they even organized a little gathering after the service, just to let me know they were thinking of me. I remember sitting in that circle, listening to their prayers, and feeling a sense of peace wash over me. It was a reminder that faith isn't just about believing in something bigger than yourself. It's about being part of a community that lifts you up when you need it most. But there was one conversation that really stuck with me. My friend Mike, who had survived cancer a few years earlier, came over one evening. We sat out on the porch, watching the sun go down, and I told him how scared I was. I admitted that I didn't feel strong, that I wasn't sure I could handle what was coming. Mike listened quietly, then put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're stronger than you think. I know it doesn't feel that way right now, but you'll be amazed at what you can get through when you have to, and you're not alone. We're all here for you." Those words stuck with me. You're stronger than you think. I repeated them to myself on the tough days, when the fear crept in, or when I felt overwhelmed. I realized that strength isn't just about facing things on your own. It is about letting others help you, about accepting kindness and support, and about believing in yourself, even when it's hard. Looking back, I don't know how I would have gotten through those weeks without my friends, my neighbors, my church, and my family. They reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's light to be found in the people who care about us. The turning point. The night before my surgery, the house was quieter than usual. My family tried to keep things normal, but you could feel the tension in the air. My wife made my favorite dinner, and we all sat together at the table, talking about anything but the hospital. But underneath it all, we were all thinking the same thing: tomorrow was the day. After dinner, my granddaughter Emily came over with her parents. She was only 6 at the time, full of energy and curiosity, always asking questions and making us laugh. That night, she seemed a little more serious, watching me with those big, thoughtful eyes. Before she left, she handed me a piece of paper, folded carefully in half. "This is for you, Grandpa," she said. I opened it up, and there it was, a drawing of the two of us, holding hands in a big, colorful garden. There were flowers everywhere, and above our heads she'd drawn a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, in her careful, wobbly handwriting, she'd written, "Grandpa, you're going to be okay. We have adventures left." I can't tell you how much that simple act of love meant to me. I looked at that picture, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. Emily didn't see me as someone who was sick or fragile. She saw me as her grandpa, her partner in adventure, the one who would always be there for her. In that moment, I realized that I wanted to be that person, not just for her, but for my whole family. That night, as I got ready for bed, I put Emily's drawing on the nightstand next to me. I looked at it and thought about all the adventures we still had ahead of us: walks in the park, trips to the zoo, stories to tell, and memories to make. I decided then and there that I was going to face the surgery with courage, not fear. I was going to fight, not just for myself, but for the people who loved me and believed in me. Sometimes it's the smallest gestures that make the biggest difference. That little drawing, filled with hope and love, gave me the strength I needed to face what was coming. It reminded me that no matter how tough things get, there's always something worth fighting for. The surgery. The day of the surgery finally arrived. I barely slept the night before, lying awake and listening to the quiet hum of the house, thinking about everything and everyone I loved. When the sun came up, it felt like the world was holding its breath right along with me. We drove to the hospital early that morning. The city was just waking up, but inside the hospital, everything was already in motion: nurses moving quickly, doctors checking charts, the steady beep of machines in the background. The smell of antiseptic was sharp and clean, and the bright fluorescent lights made everything feel a little surreal, like I was walking through someone else's dream. My family was with me every step of the way. My wife held my hand tightly as we checked in, her grip strong and steady, even though I could see the worry in her eyes. My kids hugged me, trying to be brave, telling me they'd see me soon. I tried to smile, to reassure them, but inside I was scared. I wanted to be strong for them, to show them that I believed everything would be okay. When it was time to go, I changed into the hospital gown and lay down on the gurney. The nurse covered me with a warm blanket, and my family gathered around for one last moment together before I was wheeled away. I looked at each of them, trying to memorize their faces, their voices, the love in their eyes. The last thing I remember before going under was my wife's voice. She leaned in close, brushed the hair from my forehead, and whispered, "I'll be right here when you wake up." Those words wrapped around me like a shield, giving me comfort as the anesthesia took hold and the world faded to black. The surgery took hours. My family waited anxiously in the waiting room, holding on to hope and each other. For me, it was just a blur, a deep, dreamless sleep. When I finally woke up, everything felt hazy. The lights were softer, the sounds muffled. I was groggy, disoriented, but as I slowly came back to myself, I realized I was alive. The relief was overwhelming. I saw my wife's face, tears in her eyes but a smile on her lips. She squeezed my hand and said, "You did it. You're okay." In that moment, all the fear, all the anxiety melted away. I was still here. I had made it through. Recovery. Recovery was slow, and sometimes it was painful. I think a lot of people imagine that once the surgery is over, the hard part is done. But in many ways, the real challenge was just beginning. I woke up in that hospital bed feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. Every muscle ached, and even the smallest movement took effort. The first few days, I could barely sit up without help. Eating was a struggle, my appetite was gone, and even swallowing felt strange. I remember the first time I tried to laugh at a joke my son told me, and a sharp pain shot through my chest. I had to relearn so many simple things: how to walk, how to breathe deeply, how to trust my body again. There were setbacks too. Some days I'd wake up feeling hopeful, ready to make progress. Other days, I felt frustrated and helpless. I'd try to take a few steps down the hallway, only to find myself out of breath and exhausted. There were moments when I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again, if I'd ever get back to the life I loved. But through it all, my family was there, cheering me on. My wife became my coach and my nurse, encouraging me to take one more step, to eat one more bite, to keep going even when I wanted to give up. My kids visited every day, bringing stories from home, little gifts, and lots of love. They celebrated every small victory with me, no matter how tiny it seemed. I'll never forget the first time I walked to the mailbox after coming home. It was a short walk, just a few steps down the driveway, but it felt like climbing a mountain. My wife stood at the door, watching me with tears in her eyes, and when I made it back, she hugged me like I'd just run a marathon. That moment, as simple as it was, felt like a turning point. It reminded me that progress doesn't have to be big to be meaningful. I started to notice and celebrate the little things. The first time I could shower by myself. The first time I made it through a whole meal. The first time I laughed without pain. Each small step forward was a victory, a sign that I was healing, that I was getting stronger. Recovery taught me patience, something I've never been very good at. It taught me to be gentle with myself, to accept help, and to recognize that healing isn't a straight line. There were good days and bad days, but with each passing week, I could feel myself coming back to life. Looking back, I realized that those small victories were just as important as the big ones. They gave me hope, kept me moving forward, and reminded me that even the slowest progress is still progress. Reflections and lessons. Looking back on everything I went through, I realize now that challenges don't define us, how we respond to them does. It's easy to feel like life's difficulties are what shape our story. But the truth is, it's our choices, our attitude, and our willingness to keep going that really matter. One of the biggest lessons I learned was how important it is to ask for help. I used to think I had to be strong all the time, that I needed to handle everything on my own. But when I was at my lowest, it was the support of my family, friends, and community that lifted me up. I learned that there's no shame in leaning on others, in letting people care for you when you need it most. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. I also learned to accept support, not just to ask for it, but to truly receive it. Whether it was a neighbor dropping off a meal, a friend calling to check in, or my wife holding my hand when I was scared, I realized that these acts of kindness are gifts. They're reminders that we're not alone, that we're all connected, and that love can be a powerful force for healing. Another lesson was gratitude. When you go through something difficult, It is easy to focus on what you've lost or what you can to do. But I found that even on the hardest days, there was always something to be grateful for: a warm cup of tea, a sunny afternoon, a smile from my granddaughter. Gratitude helped me shift my perspective and find hope, even in the smallest moments. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that it's okay to be scared. For a long time, I thought courage meant not feeling fear. But I've come to understand that courage is moving forward in spite of fear. It's taking the next step, even when you're uncertain. It's showing up for your family, for yourself, and for life, even when you don't know what's coming next. We all face challenges, some big, some small. But if there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's that you are stronger than you think. You have more support than you realize. And every day, no matter how tough, is a new chance to keep going, to keep growing, and to keep finding reasons to be grateful. Stories from others, on camera, voice warm and inviting, perhaps hands open or gesturing as you share each story. You know, as I went through my own journey, I realized something important. I'm not the only one who's faced tough times. In fact, when I started to open up about my experience, I was amazed by how many people shared their own stories of overcoming challenges. It reminded me that resilience is something we all carry inside us, even if we don't always see it. Let me tell you about a few people who have inspired me along the way. First, there's my friend Linda. Linda and I have known each other for years. We used to work together, actually. When she was 58, the company she'd been with for over 2 decades downsized, and she lost her job. It was a huge blow. She felt lost, unsure of what to do next, and worried about her future. But Linda didn't give up. She took a deep breath, went back to school, and learned new skills. It wasn't easy. There were days she wanted to quit, days she doubted herself. But she kept going. Today, Linda has a new career that she loves, working with a nonprofit that helps other people find jobs. She told me once, "Losing my job was the hardest thing that ever happened to me, but it also gave me a chance to reinvent myself. I'm happier now than I ever thought I could be." Then there's my neighbor, Mr. Patel. He moved to this country when he was 60 years old. Imagine that, leaving everything familiar behind, starting over in a new place, learning a new language, and building a new life from scratch. The first few years were tough. He missed his home, his friends, and the life he'd always known. But Mr. Patel didn't let those challenges stop him. He worked hard, made new friends, and slowly built a community around him. Now he's the heart of our neighborhood, always the first to welcome new families, always ready with a smile and a helping hand. He once told me, "It's never too late to start again." Every day is a new beginning. And of course, there are stories from history that remind us of the power of perseverance. Take Nelson Mandela, for example. He spent 27 years in prison, facing unimaginable hardship and injustice. But he never lost hope. When he was finally released, he didn't seek revenge. He worked for peace and reconciliation, changing the course of a nation and inspiring millions around the world. His story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, we can choose hope, forgiveness, and courage. Hearing these stories and so many others has shown me that we all have the strength to overcome. Whether it's starting over after a loss, building a new life in a new place, or standing up for what's right, every challenge we face is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to inspire others. So if you're going through a tough time right now, remember, you're not alone. There are so many people, just like you, who have faced their own mountains and found a way to keep climbing. And your story, yes, your story, might be the one that inspires someone else to keep going. Advice for viewers. If you are facing a challenge right now, no matter how big or small, here's what I want you to know. First, you are not alone. It might feel like you're carrying the weight of the world by yourself, but I promise you, there are people who care. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's friends, neighbors, or even strangers who show up when you least expect it. Don't be afraid to reach out, to let someone know what you're going through. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to listen, to help, or just to sit with you in the tough moments. Second, it's okay to ask for help. We all like to think we can handle everything on our own, but the truth is, we're stronger together. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of courage. Whether you need a ride to the doctor, someone to talk to, or just a little extra support, don't hesitate to lean on the people around you. And if you don't know who to turn to, there are support groups, hotlines, and communities online and in person ready to help. Third, take things one day at a time. When you're in the middle of a challenge, it's easy to get overwhelmed by everything that needs to be done, or by all the what-ifs that crowd your mind. Try to focus on just today. What can you do right now, in this moment, to take care of yourself? Sometimes it's as simple as getting out of bed, making a cup of tea, or taking a deep breath. Small steps add up, and before you know it, you'll look back and see how far you've come. And finally, celebrate small victories. Progress doesn't always look like giant leaps. Sometimes it's just making it through the day or finding a moment of peace in the middle of chaos. Celebrate those moments. Give yourself credit for every step forward, no matter how small. You're doing better than you think. Remember, challenges are a part of life, but they don't have to define you. You have more strength, more resilience, and more support than you realize. And every day is a new chance to keep moving forward. So if you're struggling right now, hold on, reach out. Take it one day at a time, and know that you're not alone on this journey. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. It truly means a lot that you chose to listen to my story, and I hope it brought you a little comfort, hope, or even just a reminder that you're not alone in whatever you're facing. If you have your own story of overcoming challenges, no matter how big or small, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's create a space where we can support and encourage each other, because together, we really are stronger. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please consider subscribing to the channel. I share stories like this regularly, stories of hope, resilience, and the everyday courage that gets us through tough times. And if you know someone who might need a little encouragement, feel free to share this video with them too. Remember, every day is a new chance to overcome. No matter what yesterday looked like, today is a fresh start. Take care of yourself, be gentle with your heart, and keep moving forward one step at a time. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to reading your stories and seeing you in the next video. Until then, take care and remember, you are stronger than you think.